So we're not recording. Please do not swear. Okay, perfect. So we're going to just get a bit of feedback then from the great breakout rooms. So breakout room 1, I would like as many people to share as possible, but if we have one spokesperson from that room, that would be great. So does anybody from room 1 want to share? So we had Brian or Rory, I think.
Yeah, I'll kick off, Myra,
Brilliant. Thanks.
if that's okay. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, look, as I said in the breakout room, some of the first things that came to mind for me may not have been the first things that came to mind 10, 15 years ago. So my priorities and things have changed. The fourth kind of key lesson that I had was the work-life balance. Um, so it's so important to get that right. It's important for me to organize myself, organize my time, um, make sure that when I'm leaving work, I know what I'm doing the next day. So that helps me kind of just to switch off when I get home. Um, the second big one for me was health. Um, I suppose when you're a bit younger, you're a bit more invincible. But as you get older, you kind of realize the importance of your health, not just for yourself, but for your family, for your own career. And as I said to my boys now, as I was leaving the house this morning, as the great Baz Luhrmann famously said, don't forget to wear sunscreen, because we are fortunate enough to have a lovely day today. Career choice, again, that's another one to make sure that, if possible, to have something there that you're passionate about. Um, I had written down people. Um, the workplace, I think, regardless of where it is or what it is all about people and building and maintaining good relationships. I think when you have those good relationships in work, everything kind of flows better, goes smoother. And look, treat. I've always kind of been there. Treat everybody with respect. And as somebody I think mentioned last week, never ask someone to do something you're not prepared to do yourself. And that's something I've always done in my career. Another big one I would think of is the importance of networking, having those contacts. I've often been in the position of not knowing, what to do or how to proceed in certain issues. And to have a contact or a colleague that you can ring or chat with is it's really of the utmost importance, I believe. Um, we also discussed maybe, and maybe it was just me or the way I was brought up, but you know, having that good work ethic, having those high standards, setting that bar high. For me, I remember one former director saying to me, always kind of work within your pay grades. And what he was getting at is, if you're there to manage, don't be going down rabbit holes on other issues. Another thing that I always believe in is how you show up at work. Um, Very important, I believe, that, you know, you show up, present yourself well, conduct yourself well, and that, I think, that will reflect on the team, and that'll help your team, I believe. Another one that I had and we discussed was, we often say, we're not there for the money, but money is a huge part of what we do, So I would always say, get as much money as you can. Make sure you have your pension contributions, you have your AVCs, whatever you can afford, get a hold of your finance early on in your career. Learning, continue learning, get out of that comfort zone. And then the last one I had really was, and it's a fairly simple one, is don't be afraid to ask questions.
Mhm.
And you'd be surprised how many people are afraid to ask a question or will sit there in ignorance and won't put the hand up, won't ask that vital question. So yeah, that's what I
Brian,
have,
that was
Myra.
incredible, absolutely incredible. Every point you made there is perfect advice. And, I've taken a number of notes there. When you were talking about the work-life balance and your health, I had discussions yesterday with Dermot and others about that. It is so important, your health is your wealth. And I think you realize that the older you get, because you said it whenever you're young, you almost think you are invisible. You can go out, you can do whatever, and you maybe don't do as much exercise as maybe you would, but it is so important that you do invest in your health. And then all of the others about people respect, networking, high performance. That was all about the last lesson, and how you show up to work. The intrinsic, extrinsic rewards in work as well. And you know what? That's great advice for anyone. Get your finances, think about your finances whenever you're young, because I think that's great advice for anyone in your team or anyone you're speaking to, because often you don't, and then later, and it's easy to put a little bit away, or think about that whenever, and then it all adds up. And then continue learning. I am a big advocate of that. I'm always learning, and ask questions. Yeah, absolutely. And we all need to ask questions, and that's how we learn. And I think sometimes maybe even within teams, it's even a confidence thing. People don't want to put their hand up or be seen to be the one that doesn't know. So again, it's just encouraging that and making sure that your team feel comfortable to ask those questions. So Brian, some amazing advice there. So thank you so much for that. Got a lot from that. Thank you. So we'll go to room 2 next then. So we've got Kieran, Dermot, or Vincent. So does any of you, or maybe a couple of you, want to share within that group?
Yeah, well, I'll say a couple of points, I suppose, just to kick off. We were 3 individuals who work in the same sort of sector, construction related in one capacity or another, and have all been around a few corners, I suppose. So a lot, a lot of the sort of common themes came through, and where you're delivering something for a client, these are all kind of sort of common features of our working life. So coming off the back of that, it was all about the importance of collaboration, and sharing ideas, sharing problems, not seeing a problem as an opportunity to learn. So then come into it in the right way, giving you a better chance of sorting it all out. Delegation featured because essential, and don't be afraid to delegate. Um, Recognize that you are part of a team, and you can't solve all the things yourself. And sometimes when you're a bit younger, you do want to prove a point and prove that if nobody else can fix it, I'm the person that can. And that can, well, you may well be able to do that, but the chances of you doing so are less than if you share the problem, and it certainly won't take as much as a physical or mental toll on you over a sustained period of time when you are in an environment that encourages collaboration, team solving problems, and that then comes down to having the right culture that people can feel that they can admit they need some help or ask questions, as you say, Brian. It's not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength, because we're all in this together, and we all get better satisfaction and better results out of, and it's more sustainable if we can share jobs and share problems and get things done in a much more collaborative way. Um, the only other thing to note is that sometimes you need to be firm. So if it's in your nature to be collaborative and work as a team, that's all well and good. But sometimes when you're dealing with people, you can't be the nice guy all the time or the nice person all the time. Sometimes you need to just stand your ground, and not roll over and be firm, to get respect and to make sure that what has been worked out and concluded on is reasonable. So they were the few of the observations I'd made from a group that kind of had a lot of shared experiences. I don't know if Kieran and Vincent have anything else to offer.
Brilliant, Dermot. Kieran, do you want to say a few?
Yeah, no, just I would agree. I think the previous point that Brian had made then and I think it come through in our group as well, is that work-life balance. And that maybe we made the point about COVID coming, and maybe some people or more people have found it easier to find that work-life balance. I know pre-COVID it was just helter-skelter, go at it, and I think since the world stopped and everybody maybe took a look at themselves and says, what am I at here? Do we need to be going like this all the time, burnout and stuff? So yeah, like I'd agree with everything that's been said, you know. And I suppose one of the things I've always been told in questions, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's stupid not to ask the question, because what you might know, somebody else mightn't know, and vice versa. So it's important to ask questions.
Absolutely, Kieran. No, great feedback from your team. And you know, I love the point about the delegation. And you know, it just brought me back to that fish quote. You know, you give a man a fish for a day, or else you teach them to fish. And it does take more time and effort to actually show somebody and coach them and mentor them to show them how to do something. But again, over, like you said, Dermot, a sustained period of time, then that then does free up your time and helps you to do whatever it is you need to be doing. And I do think that was one of the, you know, there's a lot of hardship and difficulties with COVID, but one of the best things that come out of COVID, it got everybody to stop. And I think, you know, it was a great lesson for all of us just to stop and, you know, take a breath. And, you know, hopefully, you know, I've heard people say recently, well, they're getting back to the pre-COVID sort of like ways, but don't. I encourage you not to. Just remember the lessons from COVID that, you know, get the right work-life balance. It is so important. So thank you for that. And then we'll come to Colleen, David and Paul then for the feedback from that group.
Yes, so we had a really good discussion, covered many of the same points that we've already heard coming up. Work-life balance was definitely something that I think we would like to have taken into account a little bit earlier in our careers. For David, you know, for him, he said it's important now in hindsight to think about taking time to evaluate before reacting to things. So either if that's evaluating an opportunity or evaluating a response, you know, be a bit more measured rather than being spontaneous, which is something that, you know, he would have prided himself on earlier in his career. But now, as in hindsight, he thinks it's, you know, just to really think about what your responses are and actions are before you do something, and that might have helped him along his path. Not to take things personally in a professional context. I think that was a good one. And then, of course, relationships. So I think quite a few of us earlier in our careers as well were very self-centered, I suppose, and focused on, you know, our own paths. And it was all about, you know, me. As we got further into our careers, we realized that relationship building with people, with your colleagues, with your customers, it's really important. And that's actually what brings a lot of sort of the joy and satisfaction to the work that we now do. So building those relationships with people. Another one that came up on our side was, you know, reaching out more for help in the context of like coaching and mentoring, you know, get help. And, you know, as managers, you know, frequently we're always thinking about what can we do to help improve our teams and our people that report to us. But as you said, Myra, earlier, a lot of, you know, as we go up the ladder, it becomes quite lonely, and a lot of the seniors, you know, we'd get a lot more benefit out of having that network of support, whether that be through peers or others more senior and within our industries and wider industries. And then from Paul's perspective, he would have liked to maybe study for longer or apply himself more in education when he was younger, and that might have, you know, brought him on a different journey. So all common things, I think, that were already picked up on by the other groups as well. But it's really interesting to hear that, you know, there's a lot of commonality here between what we're all thinking, a lot of common themes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the whole networking thing, I really hope that this group does, you know, continue to be there for each other or reach out to each other beyond the program, because, you know, hopefully you'll form connections here that you will be able to use in the future. You know, time to evaluate, that's a great one from David. I think, you know, sometimes whenever you're in a position, you're go, and you're wanting to make decisions. You know, I have got a lesson on decision making, so we will cover that. But, you know, it is important just sometimes to take a step back. And there was, you know, somebody had said to me yesterday, we were talking about crisis management yesterday in the leadership program, and the person I was sitting beside, they were like, do you ever get somebody else to read your emails, or else, you know, avoid yourself from sending them? And I was just like laughing, because yeah, you know, that's advice that you always hear. Don't, if something has annoyed you, or, you know, you're agitated about something, do not send the email. Wait an hour, wait overnight if you can, and then reread it, because, you know, the tone of it. And we talked about, you know, we'll talk about that in the next lesson, actually, effective communication, how the tone of something does impact how the other person receives it. Not going to take things personally. Very important, you know, the way things are said, you know, can be in the moment, you know, put up a sort of barrier. It's not meant that way. It's not. And you just have to believe sometimes that that person maybe isn't in the right place when they're saying it. And again, the power of coaching and mentoring is very important. So great advice there from everyone in the group. Catherine, have you anything to add? Because I know that you weren't in a group, but is there any lessons that you've learned that you'd like to share?
Probably. I mean, I probably resonated with a lot of the things that people said. Not taking things personally was something that was actually the first thing I had written down. I think that early on in my career, I did take things personally. If somebody said something to me, if somebody questioned me about something, I would have read into the tone of an email if I wasn't invited to a meeting, things like that there. And I did take things personally. And then I think it was actually maybe after being off on maternity leave and I came back to work, and maybe after having children, and I stopped caring. And it's not that I stopped caring about work, because I very much did, but I stopped caring about, I didn't take things personally. And I don't take things personally anymore, and I don't care, if that makes sense, in that respect. And then in terms of things that I wish I had done differently in hindsight, probably would be whenever I was younger, again, networking more, whenever it was easier to, and I didn't have kids and I could go to, if I was invited to a dinner or a lunch or whatever it would be. And there was probably opportunities I didn't take up on. There was maybe, like, for example, Myra, like the Timony course, like I should have had that done, and I didn't do it. And probably I regret that, because it's much easier to do that early on in your career, I think, when you don't have as many commitments at home. Continuing to learn is really important too, and it's something that I, again, would have done through the years, but I feel like I could have done more of that. And then a big one for me would be, I feel that I probably shied away from opportunities to do more public speaking, like stand up, doing presentations, standing up in meetings, saying things. And then it's meant that as I've got older, I'm 38 now, and I've talked to Myra about this before. I mean, I could talk all day long in a one-on-one or in a small group, but the thought of getting up in front of a room full of people terrifies me. I hate it. I just, it's my worst nightmare, so it is, to be perfectly honest. And talking to different people about it, they would say they were like that too, and the only way they overcome it was like, you just keep doing it, you just keep doing it. And then after a while it doesn't become an issue. And I didn't keep doing it, if that makes sense. I just would have been like, oh no, you up. So that's something that I regret. I'm trying to do it now, but I think that's a lesson that I've probably learned too. So that was the main things, but I resonated with a lot of the points that everybody else made there too. So yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. And, you know, great advice there as well. And, you know, it is true. It comes, the more you do it, the easier it is. And I've seen Catherine stand in front of a room of people and give presentations, and there's hundreds of people there, and you would not think she's nervous at all. So she's perfect at it. It's all in her mind. So it's all the attitude, belief, self-belief stuff, Catherine. So we'll keep working on that, because you are great at it, and, you know, you'll be confident to do it, and you'll be up speaking in front of everybody, no bother. Over the next, I'd say, few months. But yeah, it's that's some great advice from everyone there, and thank you all for being open and sharing. I'm going to give you a little bit of advice that I heard, and you might think this is funny, but it is quite funny. But you might remember this one. So a little bit of advice for you. All that I have heard is whenever you know, you're a leader or you're in any position, be more like a dog. So how many of you have dogs? I can't see you all. I know Catherine has a dog. Any of the rest of you have dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So how does a dog greet you first thing in the morning? They're super happy to see you. How does a dog greet you whenever you come home from work? They are ecstatic. They're so happy. They're jumping up and down. They can't wait to see you. If you tell your dog you're going to take them for a walk, the dog nearly loses their mind. They're so excited. So it's something about that attitude piece and about that, you know, excitement and, you know, how you, I suppose it's how you show up. And Brian alluded to it in his first set of, you know, if you come with a good attitude every day, you come with, you know, an expectant of, you know, excitement, today's going to be a good day, all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully you remember that piece of advice, because I loved it and I was like, okay, that sort of makes sense to me. So yeah, so I'm just going to give you a couple of hints and tips before we finish off today, just about you know, coaching and mentoring. So these are a few coaching and mentoring tips that I'll leave you with today. So the first one is coaching with curiosity. So an effective coach is an effective listener who often understands without passing judgment. So whenever you are coaching someone, it's important to try and reflect on what they've said. And it's important to remember that you don't tell them, you try and ask them questions so that they bring it out in themselves. So you can ask them questions like, what is it you want to do? What is the impact you want to make? You can then give them an example, or you can explore a situation and how, you know, they can come up with a solution on their own. So it's important not to give them all the answers whenever you're coaching somebody, and you try and get them to draw it out of themselves, because that's more impactful. Another tip is about focus on problem solving. So coaching and mentoring should be future focused. So you shouldn't really focus on the past. You can use past experiences to show how future situations can improve. But a good coach and mentor really is led by thinking about what can be done differently. And that's why we did this exercise today. So hopefully you've got lots of ideas and advice and helpful sort of, you know, peer-to-peer learning there from each other that you can use whenever you're coaching others. Another one is to keep the goals in mind. Whenever you are coaching or mentoring, you know, always try and get your team to be thinking of their goals and stretch goals. Always try and get them to go a little bit beyond where they want to go, and create those plans and milestones, and help them to have their own goals and help them to have a plan to track their progress. And then lead with empathy. So by offering constructive feedback and compassionately sharing personal experiences, like I've been there myself, or I can connect with that because I have, you know, experienced something similar or whatever. It really then does help the person to realize, okay, it isn't just me. So I suppose the final thing I'll leave you with is that coaching and mentoring is an ongoing activity. It isn't really a one-time meeting. It's usually incorporated into all your weekly meetings that you have with your team, all your monthly meetings that you have with your team. And it's important there to try and move forward and help your team grow and develop. And whenever you offer that feedback, and you can create those personal relationships and have that trust and open communication, then it really does help your team to grow. And it nurtures your employees, and it gives them self-awareness, and it helps them to take responsibility for their actions and realize that they are actually in charge of their future. So I'll just leave you with a couple of things. So the final tip is that whenever you are coaching, I think it's important to start with a positive, because, you know, you may be addressing something that you want to improve, but I believe that whenever you start with the positive first, then you can address the challenges, and then you can help them install the improvements. So this is a format for a coaching or mentoring conversation that you could use if you wish. So it's first of all, praise the achievements and the growth within the individual. So recognize what they have done really well and talk about that. And then you can identify if there's any performance issues or any improvements that you want to put in place. And then you can explain why you want to change or develop that person in this particular area. And then ask for the employee's perspective. It's always important to get their take on how they feel they can improve in this area and get their input, because then they're more involved in the process. And then you identify if there's any barriers for that improvement. Is there skills, training required? Is there anything additional you need to do? And then you collaborate on the solutions, and then you set SMART goals. So we talked about that in lesson 1. So set SMART goals with your team in an area for improvement, and then make an action plan. So that's sort of a format that you can use if you are coaching and mentoring somebody in a more formal way. But informally, you'll be doing this probably in every conversation that you have with your team. So I thought it was a really good topic to cover for one of the mastermind sessions today. So that's it today. Let me stop sharing or stop recording.